The certified letter hit my kitchen counter with a flat, official thud, the kind that carries weight before you even open it. The fridge hummed behind me. My coffee sat untouched, already losing its heat. $2,000. Commercial vehicle parking. Overnight obstruction. I read it twice, then a third time. My truck was in my own driveway, registered personal. No logos, no equipment racks. Just a pickup I'd paid off 5 years ago. Outside, it sat exactly where it always did. Clean, straight, not touching the sidewalk. You could measured it with a ruler. This wasn't the first tension. The HOA president had been watching me for months. Tight smiles at mailbox check-ins. Emails with words like appearance and community standards. Once she'd asked if I was running operations from home. Operations. I build decks and wire kitchens. That's it. I set the letter down and stared at the signature at the bottom. 3 weeks later, her Mercedes would be sitting in front of my garage. Engine cold. Keys gone. Blocking my only way out. And she had no idea what she was assuming I wouldn't do. Instead of reacting, I pulled out the bylaws and started reading every word. I'm not some guy for a fight. I've been an electrician for 18 years. Licensed, bonded, up at 5:30 most mornings. My truck isn't a billboard. No ladder rack. No decals. Just a silver F-150 with a dent near the tailgate from a job site mishap back in 2019. It's registered personal use with the state. That matters. Classification isn't about what a vehicle looks like. It's about how it's filed and taxed. I mow my lawn every Saturday. Edge it clean. I pay my dues on time. I know just enough municipal code to understand when someone's stretching it. I'm not anti-OA. I'm anti-abuse. That $2,000 wasn't just money. It was my wife's car payment. It was groceries. It was my kids' soccer fees. And more than that, it was my name in a neighborhood where reputation travels faster than facts. So I drafted a calm email, attached my vehicle registration, asked for clarification. Her reply came back 20 minutes later, short, polished, cold. Her name is Linda Carver, retired regional vice president of something corporate and polished. Perfect posture, perfect hair, drives a pearl white Mercedes that looks detailed twice a week. She didn't call. She never calls. She replied by email. Your vehicle presents as commercial, she wrote. We must maintain community standards. Presents as. I'd attached my registration. Highlighted the classification. She ignored it completely. In her next paragraph, she suggested I might be operating a business from the residence, which would be a separate violation. No evidence, just implication, the kind that lingers. Then she added something new. At our next board meeting, we will be discussing enhanced enforcement measures to protect property values. Enhanced enforcement. Interesting timing. Why the urgency over one pickup that's been parked in the same driveway for 6 years? The message ended with a reminder. Unpaid fines could result in late fees, suspension of privileges, even a lien process if necessary. A lien over a truck in my own driveway. I felt the heat rise in my chest, but I didn't answer right away. I shut the laptop, stepped outside, and looked at the neighborhood. Then I went back in, pulled out the HOA bylaws, and started reading them line by line. Once you start looking closely, you can't unsee things. 2 streets over, a landscaping van with full decals sat overnight in a board member's driveway. Across from the clubhouse, someone stored a fishing boat on a trailer for 3 straight weekends. Guest cars lined curbs well past the posted limit after every social event. No warning stickers. No violation letters taped to doors. I started walking in the evenings with my phone in my hand, quietly. Date stamps on. Wide shots, close shots, license plates when visible. I kept a folder on my desktop labeled Standards. Inside it, screenshots, timestamps, notes. Selective enforcement isn't just unfair. In most states, weakens the rule itself. If a board applies restrictions unevenly, courts tend to notice. I wasn't looking to sue anyone, but I was paying attention. A week later, another certified envelope arrived. Late fees added, interest pending. The number climbed like it had somewhere to be. I spoke to 2 neighbors privately. Both agreed it felt targeted. Neither would say that publicly. We don't want problems. One told me, eyes drifting toward the clubhouse. That's how pressure works. Quiet. Social buried in Section 8.4, there was one clause she clearly hoped nobody would read. I saved that for later. 3 weeks after the first letter, I woke up before sunrise and opened my garage. The board was hosting a community enhancement gala at the clubhouse that Friday night. String lights, catered trays, wine glasses clinking under the pavilion. Cars started lining the curbs before sunset. By 5:45 the next morning, I was in my boots, coffee in hand, heading to an early job across town. I hit the garage opener. The door rattled up. My headlights washed over silver paint. A pearl-white Mercedes sat inches from the driveway apron, close enough that I couldn't angle out. Engine cold, windows dark, no note on the windshield. I stepped out into the damp morning air and checked the plate. Linda Carver. For a long moment, I just stood there listening to birds and distant sprinklers. I could have knocked on doors. Waited. Missed my job. Instead, I took photos, wide shots, close shots, timestamp visible, distance from curb, obstruction clear. Then I called the non-emergency police line. The officer who arrived was polite, almost bored. If it's blocking your driveway, it's tow eligible, he said. Doesn't matter who owns it. I signed the authorization. As the tow truck lifted her Mercedes off the pavement, I watched quietly. She had no idea what clause she'd just violated. By 9:12 a.m., my phone started ringing. Her first voicemail came in sharp and controlled, like she was holding a lid on boiling water. What you did this morning was inappropriate and retaliatory, she said. We'll be discussing further penalties. Retaliatory. By noon, an email went out to the entire board accusing me of harassment, claiming I'd acted outside community protocol. She suggested towing required prior board notification. It doesn't. Public streets don't answer to private feelings. Then she made a mistake. She forwarded the chain to me, maybe by accident, maybe in anger. Attached was an internal thread from 2 weeks earlier. Subject line, enforcement strategy. I read it slowly. There was talk about optics, about consistency, about needing to demonstrate firmness before proposing an increased enforcement budget next quarter. And one line about my truck, about setting an example. I didn't screenshot it immediately. I just sat there, letting the weight settle. Retaliatory enforcement isn't just bad behavior. In some cases, it opens the door to personal liability for board members. Breach of fiduciary duty. Abuse of authority. This wasn't about parking anymore. That afternoon, I scheduled a 1-hour consult with a real estate attorney. The attorney's office smelled like old paper and coffee that had been sitting too long on a warmer. He read quietly. No dramatic reactions. Just a yellow highlighter moving line by line through the bylaws. When he reached Section 8.4, he stopped. Here it is, he said. Board members were subject to identical enforcement standards as homeowners. Same fines, same timelines, and in cases involving potential conflicts of interest, mandatory independent review. He looked up. Did she recuse herself when issuing your fine? She hadn't. Then we reviewed the towing incident. Under state law, blocking a driveway is a municipal violation. Period. The HOA has no override on that. Her position didn't shield her from it. Finally, he read the email thread. The tone shifted. This suggests intent, he said carefully. Targeted enforcement to justify budget expansion. Delective enforcement. Retaliation. Potential breach of fiduciary duty. He drafted a formal demand letter recommending immediate rescission of the fine, removal of late fees, and written acknowledgement of improper process. Then he added one line that stayed with me. If she refuses, he said, this doesn't stay inside the HOA. I sent the letter certified mail and requested time on the agenda for the next public meeting. The clubhouse meeting room always smells like burnt coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. Folding chairs scraped against tile as people settled in. Low whispers. Curious glances in my direction. I wasn't angry. I was prepared. When they called my name, I stood plugged in my laptop and faced the room, not just the board. I started with photos. Date stamps visible, the landscaper van, the boat. Guest cars past posted hours. No citations issued. No warnings. Then I showed the image of her Mercedes, silver paint glowing under my headlights, timestamp clear in the corner. A murmur rolled through the chairs. Finally, I opened the email thread. I read slowly. We need to set an example with him. The air changed. You could feel it. One board member leaned back, arms crossed. Another stared at the table like it might answer for him. Linda adjusted her blazer and tried to steady it. This has always been about safety and preserving property values, she said. Commercial activity changes neighborhood character. I nodded once. Then I cited the statute on driveway obstruction. Brief. Factual. I referenced Section 8.4 and the fiduciary duty to apply rules uniformly. No speeches, just documentation. The board president's jaw tightened. After a tense silence, the board voted to enter recess. That's when my attorney stood up. My attorney didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He outlined it plainly. Documented selective enforcement, written evidence of targeted intent, failure to recuse despite clear conflict. He explained how retaliatory action could expose individual board members, not just the association, to civil claims. Insurance carriers, he added, don't like intentional misconduct. Coverage can disappear quickly. That landed. The treasurer cleared his throat first. Said he hadn't been aware of the email language. Said he believed enforcement should be even-handed. Another board member shifted in his chair, then made a motion to rescind my fine pending independent review under Section 8.4. No one looked at Linda. The vote passed 3-1. For the first time since this started, she didn't have control of the room. Her posture folded inward, just slightly. Not dramatic, just smaller. The fine was withdrawn in writing 2 days later. 3 weeks after that, an email went out. Linda Carver was resigning for personal reasons. By the next quarterly meeting, the community voted to adopt an enforcement transparency policy. That night, I sat alone in my driveway and let it settle. My attorney asked if I wanted to pursue damages. Technically, I could have tried. There was documented intent, emotional stress, legal fees. I let it go. This was never about squeezing blood from a stone. It was about fairness, about making sure nobody else got cornered the same way. I joined the policy committee that formed after her resignation. We rewrote the parking guidelines in plain English, defined commercial vehicle by registration classification, not appearance, built in mandatory documentation requirements before fines could be issued, created an open reporting system, so complaints didn't disappear into private inboxes. It wasn't dramatic work. No applause, just steady correction. Over the next few months, the temperature in the neighborhood changed. People waved again. Meetings felt less like tribunals and more like conversations. One night, standing in my driveway, I looked at my truck and said it out loud to my son beside me. Rules only work when they apply to everyone. And that's the part most HOAs forget, which makes me curious about something. So let me ask you something. If you were in my position, what would you have done? Paid the fine and kept your head down, or called the tow truck? Because here's the truth. Most boards count on silence. They count on you not reading the bylaws, not knowing the statute, not wanting the friction. And sometimes, all it takes is one certified letter and one calm response to shift the balance. If you've dealt with selective enforcement, I want to hear it. What was the rule? How did they justify it? Did you push back or let it go? Drop it in the comments. People read those. They learn from them. Next week, I'm breaking down the story of a homeowner who uncovered that his HOA president was quietly billing landscaping work to her brother's company for 3 years. Different situation. Same pattern. Until then, remember this. Stay calm. Read the bylaws. Document everything, because authority only works when it answers to the same rules you do.